Hello and welcome to the next episode of Cylinder Radio. I'm your host, Will Roosh, high school teacher in Los Angeles. And the cool thing about having a podcast is you get to just have conversations with all kinds of different people with all kinds of different ideas. And my guest today is someone I'm really excited to talk about because he has ideas. And I'm so curious about what they are, what drove him to have them, and then try and see if this is a way that we can kind of bootstrap something better for our country. So my guest is Larry Sharpe. He is an entrepreneur, he's a podcaster, and he was in the 2018 race for the governorship of New York, which Cuomo won. And I don't know, how do you feel about, I mean, obviously you'd be disappointed, but what a mess that became, huh?
Well, hi everybody. So glad that
Thank you for being here, sir.
that I'm. No worries. No, all good, brother. All good. The issue that I have with what you just said is I did warn everyone so I have a lot of I told you so points on that one, right? I told everyone he was a monster. I told everybody he was a bully. I told him that this was going to happen. I literally warned of all these things. I call him a monarch. I call him king. I call him our Lord and Master. He is King Andrew Cuomo II. All hail the king. And I said because his father was governor. He is now governor. So he's Cuomo II. His father has a bridge named after him. And he married a Kennedy. So he married royal family. Literally, we have they don't call us the Empire State for nothing, my friend. We are literally, we have an imperial bridge.
He got, what he did with like the nursing homes, it's bad. It's bad.
No, he has already turned it, right? When this happened, everyone said what you just said. This is bad. Oh my God, he's going to get in peace. I said, no, he's not. No chance. None. And they're like, you're crazy, Larry. No, I know him. I ran against him. He is a ruthless, savvy politician.
Yeah.
So what did he do? Which is what I said he would do. Two people who are against him right now, two groups, I guess. Our Attorney General, Letitia James, and the people who, the nursing home people, right? Of course. Yeah. So what does he do? Well, the first thing he does is he says, nursing home issue. Well, let's blame the nursing homes. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
He then said it's because these for-profit nursing homes see for-profit by default evil. He's never been in the private sector his entire life. He's been a government employee his entire life and raised by the governor of New York. But anyway, he says, it's private. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to limit how much money they can make. I'm not joking. Literally, he has said if you are a private company in New York State, if you are a nursing home, you may not make more than 5% profit. So now the government steps in and decides how much money a private company can make. Yes. That's step one. So now he says that he's blaming them. There's going to be inquiry into them. So now when someone says nursing homes, he can blame them. And people are already buying it. Second, Letitia James is the one who will be investigating or is investigating his sexual harassment claims. She's the one involved, going through it, lots of people, all kind of stuff. He has already pegged her to be in charge of certain things, which are very difficult. For example, policing in New York State. If you haven't seen how bad our crime rate is, it is terrible. It is like they're literally in Manhattan. Yesterday, there was a daytime shootout in Manhattan. That hasn't happened since like the 80s. Like that doesn't happen. That happened. So he says, we're not going to do anything until she says it's okay. It's on her. So now she's at heat because of the crime. Brilliant. I knew he would do something like that. To be forward, I didn't think it would be that. I didn't think that far. I'm not that ruthless to think that far. But I knew he would come up with something, and he did. And so now that's the issue. And now, if you notice, he's back doing his daily, shows and talking about how awesome he is. He's right there again. He is going to run again, and unless an outsider is able to knock him out, he will win yet again. Right now, his approval rating is about 51%.
It's so slippery. And then his brother is the anchor of like the head, the top cable news channel. It's so open and obvious. That's what is just crazy. But people, I don't know, people just like the political theater. They like the story. They don't want to look into it too much.
No. They hate the other. Remember, in politics right now is far more about who you hate versus who you like or what you stand for. And right now, because the Democrats are in charge, the Republican Party is more open. Last time, Democrat Party was more open because Republicans were in charge. So when Trump was president, one thing Trump did very well, whether you like Trump or hate Trump, whatever is your politics on Trump, he united the left. The left was united against him. They were all like, yes, whatever it takes, got to get rid of Trump. They were united. Now the reverse is true. Now they're all united on socialism is going to take over the world. So now the right is more united. So the left, if you were a Republican, all you had to do, I'm sorry, if you were a Democrat, all you had to do is not like Trump and Democrats would take you. So that mattered. Just don't like Trump, we will take you. Your other policies, we don't care, right? Republicans weren't like that. They were like, you got to like Trump, period, right? You got to, or we can't even have you in our party. That's how they were back then. Things are reversed now. Trump is still very powerful in the Republican Party. He still is. But Republicans will take you if you just hate Democrats because they want to get back in power. And they're hoping that in 2022, they can retake the House and the Senate. So no one has a policy. But to be forward, that's a good thing for them because all they have to do, if I'm a Republican, all I do is go, I'll save you from socialism. See, do you have any policies? No, none at all. But I will save you from the other. And if I'm a Democrat, same thing. I'll save you from Trump. Do you have any policies? No, none at all. But I will save you from Trump. And people vote for you.
Yeah. I mean, and the Republican Party is kind of divided still on like the stop the steal stuff. But yeah, I hear you.
Yep.
They run more on like they're not what the other side is.
Correct.
You are a libertarian, sir.
Proud libertarian, my friend.
Proud libertarian. I get told that I'm a libertarian often.
And it's probably an insult.
No, I don't think of it as an insult because a lot of people that follow my stuff are
yes.
Libertarians, and I don't have a negative view of libertarians at all. But the reason I think of myself as a progressive, so let me tell you that, and then I want to hear, am I a libertarian or a progressive? So
you can be both, by the way, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I want to progress as a country. I want to get better. I want to improve. I don't believe that we can just look to the past as the way things have always been done in order to deal with the future problems. So that's why I don't identify as a conservative. But but then progressive, I don't identify as a progressive because a progressive brings in a lot of the crazy woke stuff that I'm very vocal against. So I don't know. I'm all for government programs if they work. I just don't. I'm in LA. I don't trust Newsom. I don't trust Cuomo. I don't trust Garcetti. I don't trust de Blasio. So to give them more resources sounds like a bad idea. But that doesn't mean that I'm not progressive. I just want to progress.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Look, I live in New York City. I'm raised in New York City. Clearly, I'm going to have progressive leanings, right? Clearly.
Yeah.
Right. But you're confusing libertarianism with conservatism. Here's the cool thing about libertarianism. Libertarianism is you can be as liberal or as progressive or as conservative or as Republican as you want to be, as long as you don't want to use government force to enforce your view upon others. So if you say, Larry, I am a super progressive, that's what I am. Okay, great. So do you think it is the government's job to make the rest of the world more liberal? If you go, yeah, Democrat. If you go, no, it's up to me through my example, through my works, through my group, my community, to show the world we should be more progressive. You're libertarian. That's the issue, right? And I'll give you an example of an actual policy. Here's the issue right now in most states. I know in New York State, but in most states this is true. If you are a mom of two, single, for you to go work is dumb because you will lose your benefits, you will make less money, you'll pay more in childcare, and you won't see your children as much. The system is set up for you to not work, right? That's what it's set up for, right? Because if you work, you will see your children less and make less money. So why would you do that if you were a single mom of two? Makes no sense. So what I said is, well, I have an idea. I recognize what government actually is. Government is always two things: a monopoly and a jobs program. It's those two things in every single case. It's those two things, right? There's some minor exceptions, but that's what it is. So I recognize that. Many libertarians would go, just get government away. That's insanely dumb, but we often say it because it feels good to say it. But it's insanely dumb. And it's dumb because it's a monopoly. If you take it away, then there will be nothing there. So I'm begging for a black market, violence, pain, more issues. People do need help. But I recognize something else. Whenever you add government, you by default remove community. That's how it works. More government, less community. So you've got to get a community to be able to support itself because people do need help. People do need services. We're humans. We fall down. But I just think that community, when done right, will be able to support better than government. So I'm not about knocking government down. So in my specific example, what I said was, how about New York State? we allow what's called child gardens. What's a child garden? Well, right now, if you have, I don't know if you have kids, but if you have kids, I would say, hey, you do? Great. Do you have to take your kids to the park?
Yeah. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. Yeah.
There we go. So if you have to take your 6-year-old to the park, and I say, hey, do me a favor, William, will you take my daughter with you? And you go, yeah, sure, Larry, absolutely. Here's $5 if you're going to give him some ice cream or something. You go, fine, Larry, all good. You take him to the park. You come back 4 hours later, whatever it is, life is good. Where is the need for a contract? Where's the need for a license? Where's the need for ID? None. You and I made an agreement. Done. So why can't we in New York State replace you with a charity or nonprofit? So if I want to, I can go to a local church. I can go to a VFW, an American Legion, a Knights of Columbus, whatever is your thing, and say, hey, if you want to, you may drop your kid off there and charge whatever you want to charge. Now, the pushback I get immediately is, but Larry, they won't do background checks. Then ask them to do background checks. Yeah. What if they don't? Then don't drop your kid off. It's voluntary. Right.
Yeah.
Go to the regular place or don't drop your kid off. It's your choice. I'm allowing you the option to do so. But I'm also doing something else. And it's particularly for poorer communities. The Black church has been dying for many years. Right? It just has been. If you know that, you see it's been dying. Well, churches used to be childcare. They can't because they get regulated out of business. So instead now allow the Black church to say, I'll take your kids. Yeah. What's it going to cost me? Bingo is Thursday. You're calling the numbers. And services on Sunday start at 9. I expect you here at 8:45. That's your payment.
Yeah.
Right? If a church wants to do that, it may. Allowing now a working mom to say, you know what? I can't get a really good job right now, but I can get a part-time job or a part-time gig to start to get back into the field to understand how to work again. Let me drop my kids off for 4 hours and work part-time in some office and learn what the hell's going on so I can start my career again. This is voluntary. It costs no money and you can do it. And it takes the monopoly and gives another option. My goal is not to knock down the Goliath. My goal is to build many Davids. That's my goal. I want many Davids. Is that progressive? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And it's libertarian. It is both of those things. So you absolutely can create tons of issues, ideas similar to that. I created another idea right in that same vein. So then how do you then begin to support that community? The community doesn't know how to do this. It hasn't in many cases for decades, sometimes generations. So second idea I came up with, taxes. Your taxes are going to your state, right? Okay, you have an option if you want to. Again, voluntary. If you want to, you can take $250 of your taxes that are going to New York State and instead give it to a nonprofit in New York State. If you decide for that nonprofit in your own county to encourage localism and community, it's doubled, $500. So now if you want to give $500 that you're going to lose anyway, it's going to taxes,
right?
But you don't want to give it to the state because you don't trust the state. No worries. Give it to your local nonprofit so they can start servicing the community. This will assist the local community in stepping up and create a competition for the government. So the government will do one of two things. It'll get better, home run, or it'll go away because the community has stepped up enough to support itself. One of those two things will happen. It will take time. This is not a write a law and check a box and now it's solved. This will take at least minimum 5 years because as you know, most of the time when new things pop up, there's only a small amount of early adopters.
Yeah.
Those people most people will change nothing. When I put that rule into effect, most people will change absolutely nothing. But a couple will say, I want to get back out in the world. I'm going to do it. A couple will. And they'll tell their friends. It will begin to work. And before you know it, we've got change in 1 or 2 communities. The rest begin to copy. This is long-term cultural change to make everything better. It's not relying on the past at all. It's relying on an actual idea that will work without force and without one extra tax dollar. Because when the government funds something, there are always strings attached.
Yeah.
Every single time. And the next thing to remember with government, any government agency, I'm sorry, am I talking too much? I can go on forever on this.
Not talking too much. There's so much I want to talk. There's so much you said that I believe to be spot on. So I just want to kind of add some caveats.
Go ahead. I got more to say.
Okay. Yeah. No, well, so I have a lot of questions for you. So, I mean, I love that you're just running with it, but like what you're saying, I teach U.S. history. It's in government. I mean, it's the founding fathers' vision. I'm sure you're aware of Alexis de Tocqueville. And
yes,
his book about America is like, he went to the Capitol and was like, okay, I guess all the smart people will be here. And he's like, no, this is not where the smart people are. It's America is they go, why is this new country thriving so much? And it was exactly what you're saying. It's community. The community looked out for each other. You go back to, I had a crazy conversation with some critical race theorists the other day. And one of the things that they were saying was how, the Jim Crow South was so terrible and stuff like that, like agreed. And like there were all of these pockets where so many people were not allowed to be a part of society. So what did they do? They formed a tight community, took care of each other. And, the single parent household rate was lower than it is today. There was more wealth. There was a lot of growth in wealth. Like even despite objectively way more racist policies, because it caused a community to be formed, that is huge. So my question for you—
Killer Mike said this. Killer Mike said this in his Netflix piece.
He's brilliant.
He literally
Killer Mike a lot.
There was an advantage to segregation.
Yeah.
And the advantage was, I'm not pro-segregation. I'm just saying, and I don't think he is either. Yeah. But he's saying the advantage was there were black businesses because there had to be. You couldn't go to white ones.
Yes.
So there had to be a black lawyer. There had to be a black diner. There had to be a black, shoemaker. There had to be a black general store because you couldn't go to the white ones. So it forced community. Absolutely.
Yeah. So my question—
I'm sorry, you said your question was,
No, yeah. So this is so aligned with what America is. I mean, the Constitution is written to be run this way, all this kind of stuff. And we've gotten further and further and further away from it, inch by inch by inch. Republicans, Democrats, inch by inch by inch, from FDR all the way up. Then, after the war and after the Depression, then they just executive power. They didn't give that back. Eisenhower and Truman were like, oh, I kind of like this. And then they just kept holding on to it. So my question to you is, and we'll get to some of your specific ideas, because I wrote a couple of them down that I really love and want to get more details on. But why are people not for this? Is it that they have like their ability to fend for themselves almost has been like atrophied? Like if you take your poodle and you put it out in the woods, it's no longer a wolf, it'll get eaten up. Is it that we just don't have that in us anymore to take care of ourselves, or we don't want to? We like the mommy and daddy taking care of us because it's easy. Why are people against libertarianism when they hear your message, when they hear what you're talking about? And they might disagree on little things, but that big idea of trying to facilitate more community in this country, in education and all this stuff, why are people not in favor of it?
People love what I say. They eat it up.
Yeah.
I talk to the left. I talk to the right.
Yeah.
They love it. The only people who don't love it are those who are just ideologues who just believe that magic happens because they say so, right?
Blindly loyal to their party or something like that.
Correct. Blindly loyal to something, right? They don't like. But anyone who just listens, I turn people all the time. As I say, there were 7,000 registered libertarians in New York State when I ran. I got about 200,000 votes. So someone else is voting for me other than libertarians, right? I mean, clearly, Democrats, Republicans voted for me, and still do. And most of my audience, is a mix of different backgrounds. And I talk to the left and right all the time. I had a Democrat on my show last night.
So why doesn't it catch on?
There are so many reasons. I will walk down a couple of them for you, but there's a lot.
Okay.
I'll talk first about the idea of us trying to make government work, right? The problem is, let me go back to a question someone asked me. They said, Larry, what's the worst thing that ever happened in American history? If you got to pick one thing, worst thing that ever happened in American history, worst thing ever, 9/11, Pearl Harbor, whatever. I said, nope, death of Lincoln. Death of Lincoln, hands down, worst thing ever. Because when Lincoln died and he was killed, at that point, we lost the peace of the Civil War. We won the war and lost the peace. He could have won the peace. Our problem is consistently we lose the peace. We lost the peace of World War II. We lost the peace of the Cold War. That's why we have Cold War II going on right now. And we're losing Cold War II like there's no tomorrow right now. We keep losing the peace. We win the war and lose the peace.
Cold War II, are you referring to China?
Yeah. We're going to go off a little bit. I'll go down this road for a second.
Okay.
Cold War I was the Soviet Union versus America. And that was completely because of the idiot that FDR was, right? It was his fault for that to even happen completely under his, and I'm happy to walk the number if you want to, but that's his fault. Now we have Cold War I. But the advantage of Cold War I is, one, we were ahead of the game. We were financially stronger. We had nuclear weapons. We started out big advantage Cold War I, huge advantage Cold War I. So that was awesome for us, right? That was a good part that we did. The proxy wars, the Soviet Union was the #1 partner. The junior partner was China. The proxy wars were generally against China versus the Soviet Union as a general rule, right? We did fight some proxy wars against Russia in Afghanistan and such. There was some, but lots of proxy wars that normal, but no massive action. The actual way most of us attacked was through espionage, and the thing that kept us alive, the mass destruction piece, was nuclear weapons. Well, that ends. We're too incompetent to actually solve the peace. So we just keep fighting the Cold War, even though the Soviet Union goes away. We don't stop fighting the Cold War. We expand NATO and all kind of stupid things that don't work at all. We keep everything stupid. We don't do any, we completely screw it up. So now we have Cold War II. And now the people have rotated. Now China's senior partner, Russia's junior partner. And most of our proxy wars now against Russia, in the Middle East, whatever. Our proxy wars are now against Russia more than they are China, right? Yeah. And another thing is that what we're fighting is not espionage anymore. Now it's economic. That's our war now. It's not espionage, it's economic. And our mutual destruction is not nuke, it's cyber. And we are way behind in cyber. Cyber is the weapon of mass destruction of today. We see it already with our pipeline being shut down. That's the weapon of mass destruction of the day. And we are way behind. Mm-hmm. We were attacked with ransomware over 400 times last year. Our nation was. And we do nothing about it because we can't. It's like Russia in 1948. Russia couldn't do anything. It had no nukes. Yeah. So it shut up until it got nukes, right? Eventually it got nukes, and now it can talk. We don't have cyber worth a damn. We're too busy building tanks and trying to invade Syria or some stupidity like that. Yeah. Or instead of building a cyber attack, which we should have built a long time ago. Anyway, my point being, that's Cold War II, and we are losing. China/Russia are right now winning Cold War II. And the biggest reason is we don't have a cyber counterstroke. Right. So we have no counter.
No, yes. I'm with you on that. Thank you for just like going.
So let me go back to my
why libertarianism doesn't catch on. Yeah.
Because what was the free market wasn't the free market. Right.
That's important.
And the first piece is the apartheid of the South. Remember, your point's a very valid one. Why did they have to make, laws segregating people? Well, because we might have integrated. Yeah. We probably would have. We would have integrated, right? But not just that, there would have been reparations back in 1865, which would have made sense, because how do you get reparations now when the average person now not only wasn't alive then, but if you're an immigrant family, your family wasn't even there at the time. How do you do that now? Holy crap, is that hard? Right? Yeah, how do you do really reparations now? Right? Yeah. But I get the emotion behind it. I get it. I'm just saying, look how, but imagine 1865, the 40 acres and a mule idea, right? You're taking land from the slaveholders. Everybody goes, makes sense. They were the slaveholders. They pay the price. The poor whites don't pay the price. They didn't own slaves, so they don't pay. And the army had millions of mules. It was using to tow artillery pieces and wagons and such. You give the mules to the former slaves. Yeah. So now you're saving money on feeding mules, right? So the government's saving money. They don't have to feed mules anymore. And you get the land from the people who did the bad deed. Perfect. If that had happened, what happens all of a sudden? We integrate.
Yeah, I mean, so you said something about like Jim Crow, just to add a little caveat, then I'll let you run again. Like the Jim Crow, it wasn't that you were allowed to segregate, you were mandated to. So again, correct. It's big government telling you.
Yes.
So people don't realize that. When I tell it to my students, they're like, oh, I thought it was just that it was allowed. No, you were not allowed
correct.
To integrate. Yeah.
It was mandated, so, exactly.
Right.
And that's my point, right? Yeah. So when that begins to happen, to your point, now what does the black family do? It decides to create its own community. Of course it would. Mm-hmm. Anybody would. Yeah. So people think, oh, all these black people, they want handouts. Well, go back to 1875. There's no handouts there. Mm-hmm. So now when the black people actually went back to their former owners and thought they could get that land, believing that that's what Grant said and what Sherman said, well, here comes Andrew Johnson going, no, get out. And not just that, if you don't get out, we're basically going to shoot you. Yeah. Right. We're going to kill you if you don't leave, or we're going to make you a sharecropper, which is now you're not a slave anymore. You're just a serf. Oh, I guess a step up, I guess. I'm not sure. But not much of a step up at all.
Yeah. They were living in the same community sometimes, the same farm, then the same barracks and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes. So now that begins to happen instead, right? So now they begin to grow their own communities. And when they grow their own communities, they then try to become Americans. They feel American. And you know, as your history teacher, after World War I, so many black vets came back thinking, okay, I fought for this country. I pay my taxes. I'm good. I have the rights of anybody else. And white people said, oh, no. That's not how that works. Yeah. And every time you look at a destruction of a Black Wall Street, now, as you know, there were many Black Wall Streets throughout America. Every single time the government initiated, every single time. There is no instance when white people randomly said, you know what we should do? Let's go burn down a black community. That never happened once. It was always someone got arrested, someone got scared, the cops came in, the sheriff came in, the state troopers came in. Every single time. It was government-sponsored violence. I mean, it's happened every single time. So what are you accustomed to now, being white or black? Government stepping in.
Yeah.
Government constantly steps in again and again and again. You never get an actual free market. You get a government-controlled market the entire way through. In the North, you have redlining.
Right.
So while you don't have the same violence, you have a different type of violence, economic violence.
Yeah.
Right? Different type.
So I'm with you. So I think most people follow this. They go, okay, so every time government comes in and pushes these things, we might get advancement, but we also have a whole lot of other ugly things that happen. So why is it that libertarianism seems to be more aligned with the founding fathers? It seems to be more aligned with our progress when we've had it. So why don't more people, is it the marketing? Is it the people that have a lot, libertarian by definition, the people who are libertarian like yourself don't really want a lot of power. So power hungry people push against it, where Democrats and Republicans are united against libertarians. Like,
yes. And now we go to the next piece, right?
Okay.
That gets us up to about World War II, give or take. The biggest thing that happened after World War II is that's when we decided to become our father. What do I mean by that? Our father's the UK.
Okay.
Right? Our father, the American father is United Kingdom. That's our dad. And when we left our dad, we were like, I'm not going to be like you, Dad. I'm going to be about life and liberty and happiness, not like you and your empire. I'm never going to be like you, Dad. That's what we said. And once our dad retired, because the Germans retired them after World War II, the Germans decided to retire the Brits. So they retired the Brits. And the Brits were like, we can't control this empire anymore. And what did America do? Don't worry, Dad, I got you. That's what happened. We took over the empire. And all of a sudden now we're fighting in Vietnam to keep the French happy. Why? Now we're fighting in the Middle East. Before World War II, America was seen as an honest broker. That went away, right? Now we're fighting in the Middle East. Now we have the largest navy in the world. Now the sun never sets in our empire. I mean, we're doing exactly what our father, we've become our father. So we became our father after World War II. When that happens, now we're not about life, liberty, happiness anymore. That's gone. We are now about empire. We are now about stability.
Really are.
We are now about power. The entire culture changed.
Stability. That's okay. So that's a nice transition. That makes sense, because what you I watched some of your interview on Rogan a couple of years ago, and you know, and Joe Rogan I think is kind of leans libertarian, but you know, obviously he was like, you know, giving pushback, and one of the things that he gives pushback on is, I think, just trying to make conversation, but it's the knock of new ideas. You have these new ideas, and this is essentially what federalism is all about. So federalism, for people listening, is, you know, we are the United States. We are a whole bunch of these little individual governments that are doing different things, and then we can look around and see what works for them. But then we can also, they're little laboratories. So when Colorado said, let's legalize recreational marijuana, all the other states are sitting back like, oh, let's see what happens here. And then when it worked, they go, oh, then we'll adopt it. And when you know, whether it's in New York, you want to try all these ideas.
Huh? Hold on, be clear. It didn't work. It just didn't fail.
Didn't fail. That's probably more accurate.
There's an exception, right? It didn't actually work. It just didn't fail.
It didn't fail, yeah. And so if you want to try all these new ideas out with education, with how to use mass transit, with all this stuff, like, that's you can knock everyone who's thinking. I mean, Elon Musk got constant haters until it worked, but he had to fail a lot, and he had to test a lot, and he had to kind of ignore all those people saying continue with doing things, the stability element that you said. And when you're trying 100%. To push new ideas, that is scary. I'll trust the devil I know compared to the devil I don't. And 100%. That's just going to be inch by inch by inch getting more deeper and deeper and deeper into our problems. So I think would you agree with that? Yeah.
100%. That stability is the piece. Is what matters. We must maintain the empire at all costs. We must maintain the empire at all costs. That's it. And that's where we began after World War II. You can't find a liberty president after World War II. They don't exist.
Yeah.
Every one of them is an imperial president.
Empires fall.
Yes, of course. And you know they're going to fall soon, because what do we see now? We see barbarian kings, barbarian emperors right now, don't we? Mm-hmm. Right? We saw two barbarian emperors, the last two. Mm-hmm. Biden's not. He's back to the old Roman school. But the two prior, both barbarians.
Yeah.
Once you see barbarian emperors in, you know the empire is about to fall, right? That's where you see it starting to fall. So yes, I think you're absolutely right. But my issue is the only way of saving this nation is a third party. The only way of saving this nation is Libertarian Party, because you don't have to convert to be libertarian. I just showed you. You can be progressive and be libertarian. You can be conservative and be libertarian. So all you have to do is say, can my local community be the way I want it to be? Yes, you're one of us. That's all you have to say. Can my local community be the way I want it to be? Yes, it can. Absolutely. You're one of us. So one of the reasons why we have it, to your other point, is our messengers are terrible. Our messengers are terrible. Our message is always the same idea. The problem that we have with libertarians is we're a small group and we talk amongst ourselves constantly. Mm-hmm. So all we do is say things that make us feel good and everyone else hate us. We say things like, and you'll see if you ever watch a debate with libertarians in it, right? So how do you handle this? Just get rid of government and everything will be great. And everyone goes, yeah, oh my God, yeah. And we clap and act like we're saying something awesome. And everyone else in the world is like, what are you talking about? You know, we as libertarians we believe in our heads, well, everybody's like us. We project ourselves on others. Nobody likes government. People love government. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
They like love ANCAP. Government.
I've had people follow me who are like ANCAP, anarchist capitalists, and they went, and I was like, they were telling me like, oh, like, you know, this is the way and all this stuff. And I tried to get them on my show. They wouldn't come on. And we bought an RV a couple of months ago, and I was like unloading the sewage pipe. And I was like, if this was anarchist like capitalism, then I would just open up this valve and dump my sewage anywhere. Cause screw it. You know what I mean? Like, or I might not, but people would. Like, I think people they conflate those two. Like, libertarians don't want government to work, or government, I'm sorry, to have any kind of position. It's just like turn it back to a free-for-all, every man for himself, let the strong survive. And you're saying that's not the case.
Our most popular libertarian is Gary Johnson.
Yeah.
He was a governor of New Mexico.
Yeah.
So clearly our most popular libertarians are not ANCAPs.
Yeah.
Right? To be forward, I'm not against ANCAPs at all. I actually like the anarchists being in our party. And I'm a much more mainstream libertarian than most people are, right? Much more. But people, and most people who are even close to mainstream, hate the ANCAPs. Oh, get them out. They're ruining everything. I'm like, no, we need them. They're the ones who keep us pure. They're the ones who keep us facing the right direction. If we don't keep the hardcore anarchists, the hardcore ANCAPs in our movement, if we push them out, and I will try my damnedest to not push them out, because I want them in my party desperately. If we push them out, this party will become either Democrat light or Republican light.
Yeah.
Depending upon how many people come to us, right? From what side? If the Republican Party collapses first, we become Republican light. If Democrat Party collapses first, we become Democrat light. But if we keep our anarchists in here, then we will at least always stay faced, and that's our North Star. That'll keep us based in principle. If you look at, again, I love it, your history teacher, because you'll get what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. If you look at the other two parties, they're all tribes.
Yeah.
So look at a Carter Democrat versus a Clinton Democrat versus an Obama Democrat, even now versus a Biden Democrat. Compare that to a Reagan Republican, to a Nixon Republican, to a Bush Republican, to a Trump Republican. They're all totally different.
Yeah.
Why? Because the warlord and the top of the tribe changed. And everything is based upon the will of the warlord. The warlord says, this is me. Think about it. They actually went straight up this time. The Republicans last year didn't bother creating a platform. They just were open about it. They were like, we don't need a platform. Why? Trump is our platform.
Trump. Whatever Trump says, yeah.
But that's been true for decades.
Yeah.
They just finally took the mask off. They were like, you know what? Look, just whoever's our warlord, that's who we are. Libertarians don't have that, right? I can call myself, I'm the king of libertarians. I'll be laughed out of the party.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. We are based upon principles and ideas. And the thing that I talk about constantly is every one of my ideas, and I have ideas on virtually every single thing. My ideas all the same thing. Two things: no new taxes and no force.
Right.
That's it. No force, no new taxes. Now, for some libertarians, that's not far enough. They're like, no, you got to break it all down. I'm like, nope. Everything I'm doing, no new taxes and no force, but always as something else. It breaks the monopoly of government and allows for other voluntary community actions so the community can get back into supporting itself. We've broken it since World War II.
Yes.
World War II, we broke it because all we cared about was stability. Mm-hmm. Therefore, government must step in. Look, we literally built, the government decided where we lived. It built out those communities and then had rules on who can live in those communities, and then backed all of the mortgages so people could move in those communities. The government then regimented everything to maintain the empire, and we're still doing it. So we didn't have a good example prior to World War II. That's why I bring up apartheid. There was no good example for us to even find prior to 1940, or even the Depression, World War II era. I kind of mixed those two eras together, right? There was nothing to show us. And now we're empire. So there's no place to look back. There's no one to go back and go, there's a golden age of this. Our golden age that people act like golden ages is age of empire. It's the 50s and 60s. We were fighting people in Vietnam and Korea during those times. Yeah. We were building the empire. Yeah. Why would that be a golden age?
Yeah. Yeah. When you can you expand on when you say no force? Like, that, I'm going to assume that means that if someone is, robbing a bank, you still stop them. So can you explain what that means?
I said all of my policies are no force.
Give me an example.
But we already have laws to stop that, right? Mm-hmm. All we do is make new laws, which just makes it so that the average person is a criminal. It just depends upon when they target you.
So, but when you say no force,
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
There is a problem with money laundering, right? It's a problem. Money laundering, problem. Yeah. What should we do? Make more laws. Why? Isn't money laundering already illegal? Yes. Isn't fraud illegal? Yes. Isn't robbery illegal? Yes. Why would I make a new law? Because that'll stop them. Never. That has never worked ever. Yes, we already have laws on fraud. I'll give you the best example I can give you is the absolutely made up crime of wire fraud. Wire fraud is it's not a crime. I mean, it is illegally, but it's not a crime, right? It's fraud, right? Is there knife murder? No, it's murder, right? So wire fraud is simply a tool that the federal government uses to decide if they want to pursue a case federally. That's it. That's all they use wire fraud for. Ask any prosecutor to tell you that. Wire fraud simply means that something might have gone across the state. So literally, if you and I are sitting in Los Angeles and we decide to rob a bank together, me and you in Los Angeles, we rob a bank and we rob a local credit union, not even a national bank, a local credit union, you and I decide, and I call you on the cell phone and go, William, ready to go in? You go, federal crime. The federal will say, wait a minute, use the cell phone. That might have bounced off something in Nevada, so we're going to call that wire fraud and we're going to prosecute you federally.
Well, that's the Commerce Clause, right? I mean, that's how the Commerce Clause, Gibbons versus Ogden, all that stuff just expanded. I talk about that in my government class, and my students, you go all the way to Wicker versus Filburn, I think. That was like the wheat thing. And I tell my students, they're like, what? It's like the Violence Against Women Act. It's not that we're pro-violence against women. It's just, how is this commerce? It's not. But
not just that. Why is it necessary?
Yeah, because we already have rules against violence.
If you beat a woman up, don't you go to jail?
Right.
And my issue is, let's say you don't. And I'm going to give you a serious example. This is my point about law. You know this. In many parts of the Middle East, for many years, honor killing was expected, right? So I'm a brother. My sister gets raped. It is a stain on my family because we blame the woman for getting raped. So I have to kill her. And if you go back several generations, I wasn't, not only was I not punished, I was given accolades for doing such a thing.
Yeah.
Now it's illegal in most of these countries, right? Saudi Arabia, not so sure. But in most of these countries, I'm pretty sure it's illegal.
Yeah.
But even if it's illegal, when you kill that woman, that sister, you're maybe going to get 2 years, maybe 3, right? That's a cultural issue.
Yeah.
Having women not be hurt or bothered or beaten is not a legal issue. It is a cultural issue. We have to realize that women have value, that they are important, that we spend tens of thousands of years creating culture trying to make women feel like they're not worthless when they're absolutely, completely the most valuable thing we have on a goddamn planet, right?
For sure.
We haven't, and we spent tens of thousands of years of culture convincing them that they're not. So I have an idea. How about we instead spend some time convincing them that they actually are as valuable as they are? That'll be far more important and far more valuable than any law we could ever pass. No one who is going to beat up a woman or hurt a woman is going, wait a minute, is this against the Violence with Women Act? No one's doing that. That's never happened, never will happen ever. If you think it's okay to hurt a woman, you don't care if there's a Violence Against Women Act or not. Right. That is a cultural issue that you should say to yourself, why am I using my power to intimidate and hurt people? I shouldn't do that. That is the issue. Libertarians are about cultural change. That's what I mean by volunteerism. That's what I mean by not using force. I want to create an environment. I'll give you the best example I can give you.
Well,
when it comes to COVID.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, just real quick. Sorry. Just like when you say no force, though, if someone refuses to pay their taxes, what do you do?
I said new laws. We already have laws.
No. But you said no force.
I'm not about removing things.
No, but you said no force. So what? With
any of my policies.
Like,
but we still keep laws. If you don't pay your taxes, you still go to jail.
Right.
When have you ever heard me say get rid of all the laws? I've never said that.
No, but if someone doesn't follow, so like let's just say look,
let's be clear. Theft is a crime.
Yeah.
Assault is a crime. Fraud is a crime. If there are victims, then it's a crime. What I'm saying is we're creating laws that there's, like, for example, you go to jail if you have the wrong type of firearm.
Yeah.
You go to jail if you have cannabis in your pocket. Where's the victim?
Right.
Did you brandish your gun at somebody? Crime. That's a threat. That's a crime.
Right.
Did you force cannabis on a kid? That's a crime, right? I mean, whatever. That's a crime. I don't know what anarchist has told you these things like there should be no laws. I guess some people believe that, but that's not me. No mainstream libertarian says no laws. No mainstream. I mean, hardcore libertarians do.
Yeah, because you're not going to get anywhere with that. But you mentioned the war on drugs. You talk about like legalizing marijuana. But I just recently read a Johann Hari book and I read a Carl Hart book. Who really I've talked to a lot of like social justice warriors or whatever, and they talk about systemic racism. And I always use the war on drugs as an example that could 100%. Be qualified as that, because John Ehrlichman's saying, hey, this is to lock up black people. You look at mass incarceration rates, you look at drug use, it's the same white and black, but black people are prosecuted more, they're stopped more, they're, Roland Fryer's work, all that kind of stuff. So I say the war on drugs, it needs to be ended. It's a colossal failure. It's destroying communities. People, all the conservatives say like, well, look at the single parent household rate. It's like, how many of those absent fathers are in jail because they had a nickel bag of pot? I mean,
how in the world are you going to tell the war on drugs industrial complex to stop? How in the world are you going to get the pharmaceutical companies who've made a killing on this?
They have monopoly, like you say. They have a monopoly.
How in the world are you going to get the almost 1 million law enforcement officers to stop? How are you going to get every one of those guys who yelled war on drugs, hold on, to actually go back and go, yeah, no, I was a monster and I destroyed families for nothing? How are you going to do that? You can't. So I don't talk about that. You know what I talk about?
Yeah.
Take cannabis off Schedule 1. That's it.
And which is
take cannabis off Schedule
obviously
1. That's it.
It's so obvious too. Like
yes.
To say that it has zero medical benefits, that is objectively false by any kind of measure, and yet there it stays. Barack Obama smoked pot regularly, could have changed it, didn't. Bill Clinton admitted to smoking it, could have changed it, didn't.
Bush said he did coke and he didn't do it. Bush admitted to doing coke and he didn't pull it off.
Right.
Trump didn't pull it off. Biden's firing people out of his cabinet because they did weed. What is wrong with us?
It's crazy. That's a really bad one. Just because, for the sake of time, I do want to jump into your ideas on education, because I was going to talk about taxes too, and just like I think the big reason why people don't want to pay taxes is because it's just wasteful. I'm in LA, so you look at like Gavin Newsom just wasting money, and that again aligns with more libertarian, which is about being careful of what you spend, not just write a blank check. But getting into the education, you had an idea about K through 10. I like that idea. I also like the idea of homeschooling and school choice and all this kind of stuff, because I've been in education for 15 years, a whole bunch of different schools. I talk to a lot of teachers because of the work that I do with Heterodox Academy and stuff like that. We need to do something for the education system. I'm not sure exactly what, but I do want to give you the floor to just share what your ideas are for education, because this is something that you are familiar with. This was a big part of your platform, and I think still is.
I will give you one of the reasons, the biggest reason. There are many reasons why, but the biggest reason why education is failing in America is because of federal oversight and federal money. Biggest reason. There are many, but this is the biggest one. Why? Because the federal government is only about giving money back to the schools and school districts and states based upon test scores. That's a huge part of what it is. No Child Left Behind. Wow, that was stupid. All those horrible, that's again, another law that means nothing. Change the culture and the law is irrelevant, right? So another law that's irrelevant. So the government decides we're going to do No Child Left Behind or whatever it's going to do, right? So now what does it force the school districts to do? They got to get paid. They're incentivized by getting paid. They're incentivized by two things in high school. Two, one, graduation rate. I'm sorry, not graduation, sorry, college placement rate. College placement rate, another disaster. Lots of kids shouldn't go to college. College is not magic.
Trade schools.
It's not magic.
Especially
or
now.
Get a job or something.
Right.
I'm not against college.
No,
if you say to yourself, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be an engineer, mathematician, college is your answer. I got it. No worries. Right? But if you go, I just kind of want to start working. I don't know, go work.
Yeah.
Go to college when you're 25, 26, when you change your mind, right? Go learn how to do something that you enjoy. Then you realize, you know what? I want to move up now. Good. Go get a college degree and move up. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
This is what we should be doing in America. But anyway, those are two reasons why. So now the high school is given accolades for putting kids in college and by having good high test scores. That's all they focus on. So you can't get a civics class anymore. That's why you can't get a class on home ec. You can't get that except in a private school because they're taking federal money, and that's a waste of time and energy. That's not on a test. Civics is not in a test. So why the hell are we doing civics?
Yeah.
Right? Home ec, shop. That's not on a test. Why are we doing that? Plus, if I give him a shop class, the kid might not go to college, he might go to trade school. That screws up my numbers. I got to pump kids into college because the federal government's backing all these bank loans. So I got to keep supporting the industrial complex, the bank industrial complex, by shoving kids into debt they can't handle and crushing them for 20 years. I got to keep doing that. That's why we're incentivized. So number one issue to do is to get off of the federal teat, right?
Yeah.
How do you do that? Here is how you do it. You get off of all the teats. The first thing you do is you now fund your schools in a very simple way, a grossly simple way. Okay, school district, how many children do you have? You have this amount times X. Here is your check. Good luck. That's it. No grants, no strings, no nothing. Here's your money. If you don't spend it right now in New York State, in many states, they punish you. So you have to keep spending. We are encouraging fraud, waste, and abuse. The system is set up for fraud, waste, and abuse. Yeah. But if I instead said, take it, and if you don't spend it, then save it for next year. Now you can be frugal if you want to. And now you build a new football field when your school requires a new football field. Not because you apply for a grant to me in New York State and my buddy is a contractor, developer, so I give him the federal money or the state money so you can build a football field because he needs extra cash. So now I start pumping out ideas to build 7 football fields, which happens all the time. But instead you just get it. But not just that. You get it for the school district. It doesn't matter where those kids are. So if a kid leaves a different district, they get more money. So the more kids in the district, the more money it gets. So by default, is now in the best interest of the district to make the parents and the students happy. That now becomes your incentive. The incentive isn't to make the federal government happy. So if the kids want a farming class, you can have a farming class. If the parents want a civics class, you can have a civics class, because the parents are going to be happy to move their kids there. But not just that. You give every kid, every parent who wants to either homeschool voluntarily, no force, homeschool and or private school, you give them a credit. Let's say, for example, in your state, my state's grossly high. It's $28,000 per kid. It's insanely high. The highest in the country, and we are terrible. Yeah. But let's say it's $10,000 per kid. I'm making the number up. You say $10,000 per kid, and if you want to homeschool or private school, we'll give you a $2,000 voucher. I made that up. $2,000 voucher. However, here's the rules. If you want to homeschool your kid or go to private school, you may still use the facilities in the state-run school. So you could be a homeschooler, but be on the local football team. Yeah. You could be in private school, but be in the chess club. So you could still retain community while you could still have separate schooling. But you know what? You're paying for the school district anyway. So let your kid be in a damn football team if he wants to be on a team, or chess club, or whatever is the thing, or, go to prom, or whatever is the thing. You do that, you will encourage communities to create their own rules. Why? Because now you decide, I'm going to start, teaching my kids at home. When other people go, can you teach mine too? Well, that's $4,000 a year for you now.
Yeah.
You will basically have to begin your own school if you want to. Good for you. You get 10 students, you got 20 grand. 20 students, you got 40 grand. Huh? Starting to make some cash now. Now, if you want to, now up to you, you could charge them extra. You don't have to charge them just $2 grand. That's what they get. You might charge them $3 grand. So they just pay $1,000 out of pocket.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, you're getting $3 grand per kid. So now a poor person can afford a private school if they want to, or they just go to the regular school, which will have to be better. Why? It's competing against all the schools. Mm-hmm. But not just that. The district has to be good. So the school's not even angry. If that school district has a lot of private schools in it, it's still getting cash for the kids in the school because it still has to support them on extracurricular activities. So it's in its best interest to have happier people, happier students, happier parents. The incentive changes. You will have better students. But something else, once you remove the federal and state guidelines, you know what also goes away? Administrators.
Yeah.
They go away.
Just
the biggest reason why
bureaucracy and stuff like that.
You got it. There's no need for it. It goes away. When I was a kid, you had one principal and 3 vice principals, you're done. And my high school had 2,000 people in it. And it was 4, top people, and that was it. Right? And some admin staff. We had some office staff. That was about it. Well, you'll go back to that. Why? There's no need to spend the time writing grants and seeing if you have this and seeing if you have that and making sure the state is happy. And it's irrelevant. Now, in New York State, I'm probably sure it's similar in California, but in New York State, the average school teacher makes about $80,000 a year, give or take, which is a good salary in most parts of New York. Certain parts, city, not so great, but most parts, that's a decent salary. Yeah. That's a livable salary in most parts of New York State. Administrators make double that.
Yes.
Double that. So now, if you dump 2 administrators, you can either hire more students hire more teachers if you want to, or give teachers raises, or buy more stuff. But guess who doesn't decide that? Me as the governor. Yeah. You locally. And what people always say is, but Larry, teachers can make mistakes and principals might screw up. Yeah, because they're human. That could absolutely happen. But if they screw up, that's happening now. Plus, if the governor screws up in New York State, like the idiot that we had with that Common Core disaster we put into my state, I just literally, we lost a generation of kids because of that stupid Common Core math thing we did. Now the whole state collapses. But to your point, let's say some local community decides to adopt Common Core and they screw up. Bad, but just them. We can now repair them. And so that's a whole different issue. But not just that. I've got to trust somebody, right? And if I got to decide who to trust, you know who I'm going to trust? A teacher who has spent literally years and years learning how to be a teacher, jumped through hoops, went to college, went to school, did blah, 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 just so they can do this. If I'm trusting anybody, it's teacher.
Well, that's the issue that I think is important. Is I talk to a lot of teachers, and I am a teacher, and obviously, and all that kind of stuff. The teachers also want less administration. There was a meme going around of someone shoveling, and then a whole bunch of people with clipboards standing around, and they said the person shoveling is a teacher, and then this is the diversity, equity, inclusion person. This is the, you know, differentiation person. And that's something that teachers are sending around, you know, teacher Instagram. So teachers are behind this idea of cutting down the bureaucracy.
They love my idea.
Yeah, the people who are getting out of teaching, it's not just the money. People who say like we need to fund the schools, it's not that. I mean, I can say this confidently. It's let teachers do their thing. The reason I left public school and went to a religious private school that I'm at is I went to a place where they said, Roosh, just you do you. And I understand that that could lead to the idea of teaching bad ideas, that people are flawed. And this could lead to, when you give people more freedom, then they can do bad things.
It's happening en masse now.
It's happening now. And you can reveal that with the technology we have today of getting ideas out there with all these different things, rate my professor and all this kind of stuff. You get more feedback when you are bad. It's hard to stay. I mean, you can do it, stay in an echo chamber and stuff like that, obviously, but big bad ideas going out en masse, you can reveal them to be flawed. So a lot of what you're saying is this is the freedom element, but people say like, you know, whose responsibility is to fix the country? Is it our job or the government's job? And I keep saying like, what do you think the government is? We are the government. These are just people who had 9-to-5 jobs.
We aren't anymore, my friend. We're not the government anymore. We're not.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like
we're not.
But that's true. But we're supposed to be the ones who are in these positions. But now there's been this class differentiation where they are from these schools and their daddy was in this or their uncle was in this, and they just keep running. And then it's the same people that are working for the New York Times. It's the same people that are working as the professors in these universities. And all of them are kind of lumped in together. Even though we're over an hour, I do actually have one more thing to ask you before we go. And that is,
I didn't even finish. I got more on this one.
I know there's so much. I know. We'll have to do a part 2.
I didn't do the K through 10. I didn't do that. Nothing. I got more.
I know. Let's do it. Well, let's do a part 2, sir. Because of like time, I tried to like chunk it out so it's like a little bit shorter. But if you're open to it, I'd like to do a part 2. Okay. But before we go, I just do want to ask if you're for, to some degree, less regulation, especially like regulations that aren't good. Big tech seems to be something in need of regulation. I don't know if you agree with that. That's what I am leaning toward. But what would you say is the way to deal with big tech? Because there's so much power concentrated in very few private, quote unquote, private companies. What do we do about the power within big tech? Because it's not constitutionally limited because it's technically private. So what do we do with that? And do you have like 5 minutes to kind of share on that?
Yeah, no worries at all. Happy to deal with this issue. This is what I talked about earlier, right? I don't want to knock down Goliaths. I want to build up a bunch of Davids to knock them down. The problem is once you get a Goliath, and in today's world, in a post-industrial world, our government still lives in an industrial world. It hasn't figured out that we're in a post-industrial world yet. It hasn't figured this out. So it's like, we're going to break them up. How do you break up YouTube? I mean, for someone to even say that with a straight face, you're going to break up YouTube. Wow, you're an idiot. How can you even imagine we decide if we're going to go to YouTube or not? You're just going to magically make 3 more YouTubes? We're just going to go to YouTube. We decide. The people decide where to go in this case. So if you could break up the Baby Bells, the phone companies, because you went from monopoly to a cartel system. Yeah. Wow, brilliant, government. Yeah. But at least you did that. So I'll buy that. That's something. Okay. How are you going to do that with you? People don't know this, but YouTube isn't the only search engine. There's already other options, right?
Yeah, Vimeo or something like that for videos. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. But the problem is they've allowed too many purchases. The largest search engine in America is Google. The second largest engine in America is YouTube, owned by Google. That was a mistake. Why? Because the government doesn't know any better. It still thinks it's a factory. It thinks they bought 2 factories. Yeah. It just has no idea what that means, right? You want to have separation. YouTube should not be owned by Google. That makes sense. Don't let that merger happen, right? Allow other people to get involved.
So at this point now, would you break it up?
Those 2 I would consider. Yeah. I would consider that. That is basically an unnatural monopoly.
Yeah.
But the problem is what we're seeing happen is we're having a world to where now we want to regulate the monopolies. You know what happens when you regulate monopolies. Look at the pharmaceutical company, right? You regulate them to where no one can get in, right? How do you get into the pharmaceutical world? You can't, right? How do you
get, unless you have money to the government? So it's not free market, because they're paying so much to keep have the government, because the government regulates them, but not if all of their salaries and their job security is placed in these companies.
The actual long-term answer to this is full and total transparency with government guidelines, government expectations. And when you don't meet the expectation of the government, you are flagged. You don't meet expectations of the government. And now the people have a choice. They now look at that and go, huh. You see people now who are upset. Look at what happened with Exxon. Exxon took a beating. BP took a beating. Why? Because the American people said, oh, that's kind of crappy. I don't like that, right? I'll give you an example of I think Switzerland. Switzerland tried to regulate companies, saying that a CEO can't make more than 12 times the average employee. Tried to make a law. It failed. I'm glad. But I don't have a problem with us believing, I'm not saying that's true, I'm making this number up as a good argument because Switzerland did it, that's the right number. It should be 12 times or whatever the number we deem is the right number. Then the government sets a standard. I think this is what it should be. If it's not, you get flagged. And the American people go, oh, what is this? 300 to 1? Do I want to go there? Maybe I don't. Maybe I don't. And then the other guy who's doing the right thing gets flagged as positive. This person is positive. Maybe I want to go there. The more transparency we have and the more that government is just rating, like you said, Yelp review basically by the government. The government should be a central repository for information that we actually trust. Right now, we don't. We trust the government less than we've ever. But if you make the government a central repository for information, not just government information, but multiple pieces of information, people will go there almost like a Google and believe it. It'll be the Wikipedia of government, which is what it should be. And then we go there and we see, wow, this is bad. And we begin movements. But it's something else. There's nothing wrong with a governor, an executive, a mayor, a congressperson stating their opinion without having to force a rule, right? Do I believe that Facebook has every right to create its own terms of service? Of course it does. But does that mean it's a good what they do? What it's good what they do? No, I can say it's crappy. It's terrible what you do. I can have an opinion and say that's crappy. You have a right to do it, right? If you want to go up to somebody in the street and call them ugly, you can. It's really crappy and you shouldn't. And I'm going to call you out if you do it. It's a bad thing. I don't put you in jail for it, but wow, you're a jerk. So I'm going to say this thing about Facebook. My problem with Facebook, believe it or not, is that their TOS is not clear. Neither is YouTube. Neither is Twitter. So what do? They can
change any time too. Like there's a clause that's like we can change these at any time. Like,
and they've grown so fast, right, that now they can't monitor everything. In my view, the government can punish that.
Yeah.
Because when you began this, you said you would do this. You're telling me that you're a newspaper or you're not, but now you're too big to act accordingly? Then you either better become one or the other, or you better change your terms, or you better fix yourself. Because you can't say, well, I can't watch it. It's like saying, well, I'm a child care facility. I just got too many kids. I can't watch them all. It's not my fault. I can't watch all the kids. There's too many of them. That's what YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter is. Yeah. No, either don't take as many kids or build up to watch the kids.
Right.
You can't go, well, I can't watch all the kids. What do you want me to do? That's what they're doing right now.
Yeah, no, that's a great metaphor. So, look, I think talking to you is so interesting because you really have your ducks in a row. You know, whether people agree with you or not, Larry, like you are open to have these discussions. And I mean, you seem like someone too, that if new information comes your way, you will pivot to go 100%. With whatever is the best way. And that humility, I think, is really important for people who are going to be leaders. Where can people find you? Because I'm hoping that people will listen to this and they'll say, Will, why didn't you challenge him on this or ask about this or ask about this? And you seem to be open about talking about all of this stuff. 100%. So I would love to send people your way so that I don't think there's things that can be thrown at you that you won't have an opinion about. And as I said, keep an open mind with like, what perspectives am I missing here? Because it should fit into the brilliance of our founding fathers and our founding documents, which seems to be very aligned with libertarian values. So where can people find you, your podcast,
things like that?
Let me touch
two pieces real fast.
Okay.
If I could, just 2 pieces up.
Yes.
I know you want to go, but just give me a couple minutes to finish the last 2 pieces.
No problem.
One of them is I literally changed my mind on air sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one, I was talking about, how to repair policing after George Floyd was killed. I was talking about an actual policy. I didn't just yell, defund the police or back the blue. I came up with an actual policy to repair policing, right?
Yeah.
But I realized afterwards, someone came to me and said, Larry, that works good in the city, right? New York City has 40,000 cops, right? So it's almost an army. So my mindset is still New York City policing. And a guy from upstate New York said, Larry, tell me how it works. So I literally had him on my show. He was a cop from upstate New York. I had him on my show. We talked it out. I was like, you know what? Rural policing is different. You're right. My policy is good for cities. I've got to change it for rural communities. It just doesn't work the same way. So you're right. I changed my mind literally on that show. I was like, you know what? I am biased by my city living. Yeah. I need to accept that. Not everyone lives in the city like me. So I changed my opinion right there. So yes. But the second piece I'll bring up is why am I happy to talk to anybody, have conversations? It's going to be something that's going to sound like I have a lot of hubris, but it's not because of who I am. It's because of what I believe. I always have the moral high ground. That's why I don't worry about it. I always have the moral high ground in discussion. Why? Because I'm always about never using force and giving more people better options to include poor and middle-class people. That's everything I talk about. Every single policy is always about giving everyone a better opportunity and a chance, no force. So of course I have the moral high ground on anything I talk about. Doesn't matter what it is. I might be wrong. That's possible. Yeah. Of course, I'm human. But I'm never going to be coming from a bad place. I'm always coming from the right place. What is going to make that happen? Because in my view, the libertarian movement, the liberty movement is not about liberty or freedom. They'll tell you that all the time and they're wrong. That's that's not true. That's a means to an end. The end is happiness. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Our divorce papers from the UK literally said that in them. We want to be happy. Happy people don't revolt. Happy people grow businesses. Happy people grow families. Happy people don't revolt and fight and protest. Happy people is a good thing. I want happy people. But how can I make you or anybody listening happy? What one thing can I give you? I can't. It's impossible because what makes you happy won't make the other person happy. But not just that. What makes you happy now won't make you happy 10 years from now. So all I can do is provide an environment that will allow you to pursue your happiness as you see fit. Well, everybody wants to be free, Larry. No, some people don't want to be free, and that's okay too. Yeah. If that's what makes you happy now, go be happy. Freedom and liberty is a means to an end. My movement, my view, my idea is happiness. It's what this country was founded on. That's what our documents said when we left our dad. We said, happiness, Dad. That's what we are all about. And we have forgotten that. And we are now about empire. And I would like to bring us back to being about happiness.
I love it. I think it's great. And what's the name of your podcast? Are you on social media channels and things like that?
The Sharpe Way.
Right?
Absolutely. I'm on all the interweb things. I'm on Twitter and YouTube and TikTok. I'm on you name it. I'm on it. I'm on all of those things. So if you please check out The Sharpe Way. I'm on everything. I do a show almost every night, 7 or 8 p.m.
Very cool. All right. And I'll put all the links in the description here and stuff like that. Larry Sharpe, thank you so much for doing this. I think that, this needs to be one where I should have blocked out. I had like a meeting, like I should have blocked out more time because you can just pontificate on your ideas with all the details and the backing of it so much. So it's a fault of mine to not give you more room to run, and maybe we can do this again. It's all good. Because I really enjoyed it. And I think that you bring up good points that I hope, at the very least, I hope it just puts a crack in people's heads to go, maybe there's something to this libertarian thing. And I think you would be a good place for people to go, as opposed to there's some other avenues, as we talked about, that maybe would turn people off who are reasonable. So I think heading your way would be a great thing. Well, let me give you two.
You can go to LarrySharpe.com. That's my governor page. I haven't left it. Still there. Policies are there. Blogs, white papers are there for policies. If you care, go there if you like. Everything from the MTA to everything else from 2018 is still there. If you want to go there, please go ahead. Or if you really want to do a deep dive, you can go to my Sharpe Way YouTube page. There are 2 specific playlists. One of them says, can't feel the burn. Maybe it's not sharp enough. It's me in 4 different videos going down Bernie Sanders' YouTube, his page, and covering a libertarian answer for every single one of his policies.
Yeah.
It's a total of about 6 hours long. It's long, but I went down I went down his website and I covered and I gave a libertarian answer for every one. And the other one is COVID-19 response, March 2020. And I explained how I would have handled COVID over a year ago. Wow. And with what I knew in March 2020, sadly, I was right.
Well, yeah, I know. I think you've found yourself in a situation where you unfortunately have to say, I told you so. And I don't think you take any pleasure in that, given the situation. So, Larry Sharpe, thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed this, and I hope to be able to do it again.
Thank you, brother.
All right.